NorthPoint Thrive. And the topic for today is what's thinking got to do with it. Um, Dr. Exon, you can move to the next slide. So the goal of this presentation is just to provide some useful information and strategies on how to use positive thinking to bolster resilience. I found this quote from Vivian Kamori, and it basically gives a good summation of the definition of resilience. She says, life is not about how fast you run or how high you climb, but how well you bounce. Next slide. For most of us, the definition of resilience is the ability to cope with whatever life throws at you, or the ability or the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. I like to think about resilience, or I like to think about resilience as, if you think about a rubber band, no matter how far a resilient person is stretched or pulled by negative emotions, he or she has the ability to bounce back to his or her original state. Next slide. Most people who are resilient typically have the following characteristics. They usually have a positive attitude. They're typically optimistic. They regulate their emotions very well and usually see failures as helpful feedback. So they don't crumble. They bounce right back. And sometimes that is a little bit, it takes a while, but most of the time they will always come back to that original state. Next slide. Before we go into talking about how to go from, from being a negative thinker to a positive thinker, let's just take a look at some examples of positive thinking versus negative thinking. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you probably know, because this has happened to you a few times, where you probably had thoughts sort of like this. Oh, I'm so worthless. I never accomplish anything. I always make mistakes. Those are some of the negative thoughts that we think about. But people who are much more positive will say things like, even though today sucks, I'll do better tomorrow. Life is hard, but things will work out. It is important to keep those positive thoughts in our minds, because that is what is going to help us get through life on difficult days. Next slide. So why is it even important that we're talking about negative thinking and positive thinking? Just to be conscious of time, I will not go through this whole list. What I would like for us to remember is that negative thoughts lead to negative emotions. These negative emotions shut down parts of the brain that is responsible for logical thinking, which thus restricts our thinking power and traps us into a negative spiral of inaccurate perceptions and misinterpretations. So people that tend to be negative experience more negative moods or mood swings. They also have higher rates of depression and anxiety, as well as fear. But research actually shows that these people tend to have more health conditions, as well as die from illnesses earlier than people who are positive thinkers. Next slide. On the other hand, thinking leads to positive emotions, which results in an increase in brain synapses, mental productivity, cognition, focus, and just overall better health. Next slide. Some other benefits of positive thinking, which has been shown by research, includes better physical health, greater resistance to illnesses such as the common cold, lower blood pressures, better stress management, better moods, less depression, and a longer lifespan. There was research that actually showed that if two people had the same diagnosis with the same level of disease activity, those who were much more positive tend to heal faster than those who were not positive. Next slide. All right. So, how do we go from, changing our thought processes? How do we go from, being in this space of negativity to becoming more positive? The general, the general thought process of someone who is negative follows this ABC pattern. First, you have adversity. That adversity leads to thoughts and specific beliefs. And those thoughts and specific beliefs lead to certain consequences. If nothing is done, we end up in this spiral of, negativity. In order to change that, two things need to happen. One, you either need to distract yourself from those thoughts, or disputation. Well, let's take a look at how this works. So for example, you're in a meeting and everybody is asked to propose an idea. And you give your own proposal, and your boss critiques that proposal in the meeting, rightfully so. But you say to yourself, oh, she's right. I'm so worthless. I'm dumb. I bet everyone is thinking and making fun of me. I should never have spoken up. And then the consequence that can arise from that is you feel stupid. And so you tell yourself, I'm never going to speak in a meeting again. Or you might even say, oh, I should try to avoid this meeting in the future if I can. If nothing changes, this will continue, and it could lead to you not being productive at work. It could lead to low self-esteem, and but to counteract that, is one way to do that is through distraction. And how does that really work? So, for example, the way this would work is, I'll give you an example. Some people would put a rubber band under your wrist. And every time, they face an adversity and they start having these negative beliefs and they start thinking of these negative consequences, they would pull that rubber band and snap that rubber band under your wrist. And that would disrupt the thought. It would interrupt that negative thought. Once that is interrupted, then you want to shift your attention to something else for about 1 minute. And this will help you to kind of stop that negative thinking. A better way to do this is to dispute those negative thoughts by arguing with yourself, or as Dr. Thomas will put it, challenge the belief by putting your thoughts on trial. Once you do this, you will be able to shift from that negative thinking to positive thinking. And the way you do this, for example, is to take a step back and say, what am I really saying? What did my boss actually say? Did she just mean to put me down, or did she have a good point? Look through that and then critically assess your thought process. By doing this, you'd be able to reach a better conclusion and bolster resilience, as well as increase your self-esteem. Next slide. So, a little step by step on how you can do this and how you can practice this on a daily basis. It's usually helpful to, if you know you're somebody who tends to fall into this space of negativity often, to keep a little journal. So track your inner dialogue. This is really important because what we say about ourselves matters. So track your inner dialogue. Every time you face adversity, track that. What am I really thinking? What am I saying about me? What are the beliefs that I have? Go ahead, track that. And then once you have done that, analyze your thoughts, analyze those results. What did I notice? And then use either distraction or disputation to help you change your thinking. Next slide. But in general, it is really important for us to cultivate a positive mindset. Practices such as mindfulness will help you to start your day in a positive frame of mind. So, for example, you can wake up in the morning and start start reciting some positive affirmations that will help you to have a positive mind frame from the morning. Also, practicing self-compassion, because we all are human and there are times when we just don't, we just don't feel our best. And so be compassionate towards yourself. Gratitude is also a way to cultivate positivity. So thinking about the things you're grateful for, even if it's one or two things, and hold on those positive things throughout the day. Give yourself a well-deserved praise when you are able to change your thought process from negative to positive. But most importantly, it is important to seek positive influences. Surround yourself with people who think positive and who are always optimistic. That will also help you, because if you hang around people who are also negative, that will make you more negative. Helping others will bring you happiness and joy, and that will also put you in a positive mind frame. Exercising, taking care of yourself. When we feel good and we're healthy, we usually are much more positive. But lastly, we want to make sure that we watch what we say about ourselves. Most people are their own worst critics and usually fall into this category where they tend to describe themselves negatively. So if you are that kind of a person, start to think of positive words to describe yourself and practice saying nice things about you. Next slide. Thank you so much. And I know I went through this really fast, but if you want more information, you can check this out on the team's website. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solange. And we're out of time. And I just want to thank you all for your work